Yan stepped off the cargo freighter into the crowded bazaar on Solura's moon. Stalls lined narrow pathways, each sheltered by brightly colored tarps. Alien traders shouted offers in strange tongues, and humans like Ryan paused to admire glowing crystals or taste exotic fruits. Ryan's fingers tightened around a small data pad in his pocket. He had come to browse, not to buy, but something in the air made his heart beat faster. He followed a soft melody drifting from a distant stall. The music was gentle and warm, and he felt drawn toward it. There, sitting on a low platform surrounded by hanging lanterns, was an alien woman. Her skin was pale violet, and her large eyes shone with curiosity. She wore simple robes of flowing silver fabric that caught the lantern light. She looked at Ryan with a calm, open expression. Around her, a small group of traders watched quietly, waiting. Ryan approached slowly. The trader in charge was an older human named Celine. She smiled warmly. Interested? Celine asked. Ryan shook his head. I was not planning to buy, he said softly. The alien woman tilted her head. She did not speak his language, but her eyes seemed to tell him not to worry. Ryan felt a sudden urge to learn more about her. Celine waved a clawed hand toward the data pad in Ryan's pocket. She is for sale, Celine said. Companion, helper, friend. She brings joy. Ryan's mind raced. Companion, helper, friend. He thought of his lonely journey across stars, of empty sleeping quarters and silent meals. He sighed. How much? He asked. Celine named a number that made Ryan hesitate. It was more than he had expected to spend on supplies. But Ryan felt something stir inside his chest to hope that this alien woman might fill the empty spaces in his daily life. He agreed. Celine touched a control on her wrist device, and the datapad lit up with images and codes. Ryan signed them. Contract with a stylus, his signature looping awkwardly. The alien woman stood and stepped toward him. Her movements were slow and graceful. She extended a slender hand, and Ryan took it. Her skin felt soft and warm. She did not pull away. Ryan stared at her long fingers and thought how different she was from any human he had known. The contract complete, Celine stepped back. She is now yours, Celine said with a kind nod. Ryan bowed slightly to the trader and then turned to his new companion. She smiled at him. In that moment, Ryan felt a spark of excitement. He offered his arm, and she placed her hand on it. She leaned her head forward, so her pale violet hair brushed his shoulder. Ryan felt a strange comfort, as if he had found something he did not know he needed. They left the bazaar together. The moon's surface glowed in pale blue, and distant city lights twinkled beneath them. Ryan led the way toward his ship. He spoke softly, using basic words he had prepared for newcomers. This way, he said. She followed without fear. When they reached the ship's airlock, Ryan scanned the code and held the door open. She stepped inside, looking around with wonder. Inside the dim corridor, Ryan switched on a soft lamp. The room was small but clean. A single bunk sat against the wall, and a small table stood near the door. Ryan pointed to the bunk. Your room, he said. She nodded and stepped forward. She placed a gentle hand on the bed's edge and ran her fingers over the blanket. She smiled again, and Ryan realized she was happy, not frightened. Ryan watched her for a moment, then retrieved the cups from a cabinet. He poured warm tea from a small dispenser. He handed one cup to her. She accepted it with both hands and raised it to her lips. The warm liquid steamed in the cool air. She tasted it, her eyebrows lifting in pleasant surprise. She let out a soft sigh of contentment. Ryan took a sip of his own tea. He glanced at her and asked, Do you like this? She nodded and held the cup close to her chest. Her eyes shone, and Ryan felt his heart soften. He did not see fear or sadness. He saw genuine happiness. As the moon outside drifted across the sky, Ryan and his companion sat side by side, sipping tea in silence. The soft music from the bazaar no longer played, but in that quiet moment, Ryan heard something inside himself, a gentle hope that this surprising purchase might become a true friendship. He smiled at try and woke before dawn the next day, sunlight filtering through the small porthole of his ship. He dressed quickly and prepared simple breakfast of flatbreads and a bowl of fruit. He carried a tray and knocked gently on the companion's door. She emerged wearing a plain tunic, her pale violet skin glowing softly in the morning light. She looked at Ryan with her bright eyes, and he smiled. Without words, he offered the tray. She accepted a flatbread and bit into it, closing her eyes. At the taste dot after breakfast, Ryan led her down to the Colony Plaza. The early streets were quiet, and merchants began to open their stalls. Ryan pointed to a vendor selling fresh vegetables. He held up a green pod and made a soft, popping sound. She watched carefully and then imitated him. The vendor laughed kindly and handed her the pod. She cracked it open with slender fingers, revealing small seeds, and popped one into her mouth. She chewed slowly, delight on her face. Ryan felt proud. They moved on toward the language center, a small building where newcomers learned basic colony speech. Ryan opened the door and led her inside. A human teacher greeted them warmly. She gestured to a chair and handed the companion a workbook filled with simple symbols. Ryan sat beside her and traced a symbol in the air, a circle with a line under it. The symbol meant good. The companion watched his finger carefully and repeated the shape in the workbook. She nodded with quiet satisfaction. At first, her speech sounded strange, soft clicks and flowing tones. The teacher recorded her attempts and translated gently. Each correct word brought a soft smile from the companion. Ryan wrote a word on a small board, friend. He pointed to the companion and then wrote it again. She repeated the word slowly. Friend, her eyes shone. Ryan placed his hand on his heart and then gently tapped the companion's chest, saying friend. She placed her hand over his and whispered the word more clearly. Ryan clapped softly, and the teacher nodded in approval. After class, Ryan and his companion walked through a park filled with tall, blue-leaved trees. Ryan knelt by a fountain and scooped water into his hands. He sipped and let the cool water run down his arms. The companion watched and then crouched beside him. She touched the water and giggled as droplets splashed her fingers. Ryan dipped his hand into the flow and splashed lightly. She laughed, her voice a soft melody that echoed among the trees. Ryan felt his heart lighten. They found a bench under a tree. Ryan pointed to his data pad and opened a simple picture of the Celeron homeworld. He tapped on an image of purple oceans and silver forests. The companion's eyes widened. She made a soft sound and placed her hand on the screen. Ryan panned to images of Terra Nova, green fields and tall buildings. She watched both worlds in silence, then looked up at him. Ryan realized she missed her home. He gently took her hand and squeezed it, promising he would help her feel at home here. Later, they visited the medical bay. Ryan had a small cut on his palm from yesterday's work. He sat in a chair and showed his hand to the companion. She stepped forward, turned on a small healing device she kept at her belt, and placed its tip against his skin. A soft glow of healing light bathed the cut for a moment. Ryan winced less than before. The companion watched the cut close, her expression one of concentration and hope. When the wound healed, Ryan flexed his fingers and looked at her in wonder. She smiled. Pleased to help. By afternoon, Ryan guided her to a workshop where colony artisans etched designs into metal. He had commissioned a simple bracelet for her. They sat side by side at a workbench. Ryan pointed to the metal band and then to the companion's wrist. She nodded and held out her slender arm. The artisan bent the metal gently around her wrist. When finished, Ryan slipped it onto her arm. The bracelet bore to link circle symbols of unity. She touched it and looked at Ryan with deep gratitude. As sunset painted the sky in rosy hues, they returned to the plaza. Performers played soft music on stringed instruments. The companion stood and listened. Closing her eyes, Ryan tapped his foot to the rhythm and then tapped her shoulder lightly. She opened her eyes and watched him move. He offered his hand, and she placed hers in his. Together, they swayed to the music. Traders paused to watch the pair dancing under lantern light. She laughed softly and leaned into Ryan's shoulder. When the music ended, Ryan guided her back to the ship. She paused at the entryway and looked up at the sky, where the moons glowed. She placed a hand over her heart and whispered thank you. Ryan tapped his chest and replied, friend. She repeated it softly, her eyes full of warmth. Inside the ship, he prepared water and soft blankets. They sat once more, side by side. Watching the moons drift across the sky, Ryan felt a deep satisfaction. His companion was not just happy she was thriving, and he knew this journey, begun by chance, was becoming something more, a true friendship forged between two very different beings. Ryan woke early and led his companion into the heart of Terra Nova's spring festival. The plaza was alive with color. Banners hung between buildings, and lanterns swayed in the gentle breeze. Stalls offered painted masks, hand-woven fabrics, and sweet treats made from alien fruits. Musicians tuned instruments on a low stage at the plaza's edge. Ryan guided his companion toward a mask maker. The craftsman held out a simple wooden mask painted in bright reds and golds. Ryan pointed at the mask and then at his companion's face. She nodded slowly, and the craftsman fastened the mask with soft ties. When Ryan removed her hood, the mask fit perfectly over her eyes. She turned toward a mirror propped on a nearby table. She touched the mask gently, her fingers tracing the painted lines. She gave a small nod of approval, and Ryan smiled. Next, they moved to a stall where dancers practiced flowing movements to drum rhythms. Ryan tapped his foot in time with the beat. He leaned close to his companion and made a rolling sound with his tongue. She watched his lips carefully, then tried the sound herself. The beat thumped again, and her body responded. She tilted her head and let her arms float in gentle circles. Ryan watched in wonder. Her movements were graceful, and the dancers paused to admire her natural talent. As the sun climbed higher, Ryan led her to a small art exhibit under a canvas tent. Paintings of alien landscapes and human cities lined the tent walls. Ryan pointed to each painting, naming simple words: ship, forest, home. She smiled at each word and then touched the painting of Solura's purple oceans. Her eyes softened. She whispered a soft Celeron word, and Ryan shook his head apologetically. He did not understand, but he squeezed her hand to show support. Near the tent's center, an artist sketched portraits with charcoal. Ryan invited his companion to sit. She sat on a low stool and posed, tilting her head slightly. The artist's hand moved quickly, capturing the gentle curve of her cheek and the brightness of her eyes. When the sketch was finished, the artist handed it to Ryan. The portrait showed her joy clearly. She looked at the charcoal lines and reached out to touch the paper. Her smile grew wide. By midday, the music began on the main stage. A human singer stepped forward, her clear voice echoing across the plaza. She sang of new beginnings and unity among worlds. Ryan watched his companion's face as the melody rose. Her eyes glistened, and she clapped at the song's end. Ryan applauded too. He felt pride that she could share this moment with the crowd. Then, a soft hush fell as the companion stood and moved toward the stage. Ryan stepped back, surprised, but supportive. She lifted the mask from her face and held it to her chest. She closed her eyes and began to sing. Her voice was gentle and strange, a flowing lullaby from Solura. Notes drifted over the crowd like wind through leaves. The plaza became silent, every listener caught by her song. Ryan felt a tear on his cheek. He realized others felt the same. The singer beside him joined in softly, blending human melody with Celeron tones. Together they wove a new song that spoke of friendship and hope. When the final note faded, the plaza burst into applause. Traders and dancers gathered to praise the companion's gift. She bowed her head, her cheeks faintly pink beneath the mask. After the performance, Ryan found her backstage. She held the mask in both hands, her eyes bright despite the mask's hiding. He placed a hand on her shoulder. She looked up and said thank you in broken colony speech. Her words were small but filled with meaning. Ryan whispered, "You were amazing." She smiled and repeated the word, amazing, her voice soft as a breeze. They walked through the festival grounds, visiting a food stall filled with colorful cakes topped with spun sugar. Ryan pointed at a pink cake and then at his companion. She pointed to the cake too. The vendor handed them to small pieces. They tasted the sweet treat together, icing melting on their tongues. She laughed at the sugar's sudden burst of flavor, and Ryan laughed with her. Later, They paused by a fountain that spilled water into a shallow pool. Ryan knelt and scooped water into his hand, then held it out to her. She touched the water and felt its cool flow. He watched her face light up. She dipped a finger into the pool and made small ripples. Ryan knelt beside her, their shoulders nearly touching. He realized these small moments build a deeper bond than any contract could create. As evening approached, lanterns glowed along the plaza's walkways. Dancers and musicians gathered again. Ryan led his companion to a small patch of grass under a tree. He tapped his chest and then tapped hers. She understood. They sat close together, sharing a quiet peace amid the festival's bright energy. Above them, stars shone through the night sky, and the twin moons of Terra Nova drifted low. In that moment, Ryan felt a new depth of friendship. His companion had shown him the beauty of her culture, and she had embraced his world without fear. They sat in silence, listening to distant music and feeling the warmth of shared joy. Ryan reached out and gently took her hand. She did not pull away. Instead, she held his hand and pressed it to her heart. The night deepened, and the festival's lights reflected in their joined hands. Ryan looked at his companion and whispered, "You are home here." She rested her head on his shoulder and closed her eyes. The soft melody of the plaza drifted around them, and Ryan knew their journey was changing both their lives forever. Ryan rose with the pale light of Terra Nova's morning and invited his companion to join him at the community center. Volunteers gathered in a low, domed building to help with daily chores, sorting supplies, tending small gardens, and caring for the colony's stray animals. The companion followed Ryan through sliding doors, her pale violet skin glowing softly. Under the bright panels, she carried a small satchel Ryan had packed for her, filled with warm cloths and water vials. They greeted the other helpers with simple nods and soft waves, and Ryan introduced her as his friend. She spoke the word friend clearly now, and the volunteers smiled at her shy confidence. Outside, a gardener had cut his hand on a broken tool and sat on a low stone wall, blood seeping onto his uniform. He winced as he pressed the cloth to the wound. Ryan knelt beside him and spoke soothing words, though the gardener did not understand. The companion stepped forward, her expression calm and focused. She opened her satchel and withdrew a small healing device and orb that pulsed. With gentle light, with slow care, she placed the orb's tip against the gardener's hand. A soft hum filled the air as the device worked, and within moments the cut closed without a scar. The gardener flexed his fingers in wonder and looked up at the companion with gratitude. The volunteers gathered around, their eyes wide. Ryan placed a hand on the companion's shoulder and tasted a swell of pride. She smiled at the gardener's relieved nod and then at the circle of onlookers. One young volunteer stepped forward and asked her name. She hesitated, then whispered Lyra, the name Ryan had chosen for her. The volunteers repeated the name in gentle tones, Lyra. She nodded, her eyes shining with joy. Later, Ryan guided Lyra to the demonstration room where colony healers trained newcomers in basic first aid. Today, the lead instructor invited Lyra to show her talent. The room was bright and filled with soft benches. Ryan watched as Lyra knelt beside a volunteer with a bruise on her arm. With careful motion, Lyra placed her hand over the bruise and focused. The device glowed again, and the bruise faded, leaving smooth skin behind. Gasps filled the room. The colony healer scratched his chin and then bowed to Lyra in respect. Ryan felt his heart swell. Lyra's gift was more than useful. It built bridges between them and the colony. After the demonstration, the colony's council member approached Ryan and Lyra with a small ribbon. She pinned it on Lyra's tunic. For service to the people, the council member said in soft tones. Lyra touched the ribbon and looked at Ryan, her smile wide. Volunteers clapped, and traders in the hallway stopped to nod their heads. For the first time, Lyra felt truly seen, not as a purchase or a curiosity, but as a valued helper. Ryan squeezed her hand and whispered, "Well done, friend." She repeated friend in clear speech, her joy echoing through the hall. As the sun dipped low, Ryan and Lyra walked through a quiet garden beside the community center. Ryan pointed to a bench beneath a flowering tree. They sat and shared. Sweet fruit from Lyra's homeworld, small purple berries that burst with flavor. Lyra taught Ryan a simple Celeron greeting, and he laughed as he tried to copy the flowing tones. She clapped her hands softly in delight when he succeeded. They spoke in broken words and soft gestures, but the meaning was clear. They cared for each other. When evening fell, they returned to the ship. Ryan brewed warm tea and offered Lyra a cup. She held it gently, the steam rising between them. Ryan asked her if she was happy. She nodded and placed her hand over her heart. Ryan tapped his chest and then hers, saying heart, she repeated the word and smiled. They sat close, sharing silence and warmth under the twin moons. Ryan thought of Lyra's first day. He had bought a companion, but he had gained a friend. And Lyra, he realized, had found more than a home. She had found a place where she belonged. Ryan woke before the sun rose, sunlight spilling through the porthole as he dressed quietly. He did not see Lyra in her bunk. He called softly, Lyra? She appeared in the doorway, dressed in a simple tunic. Her violet skin glowed in the pale light. She held a small satchel and nodded. Ryan offered his arm, and they left the ship together. They traveled to the colony's central plaza, where an official building stood tall among lower market stalls. Today was the hearing. Ryan felt his heart pound, but Lyra walked beside him with calm determination as they entered the cool marble hall. Curious onlookers paused to stare. Ryan gripped Lyra's hand, and she squeezed back. They moved toward a raised dais where a stern official in a dark uniform waited. The official cleared his throat. Ryan Cross, you claim this alien woman is your companion by choice. Yet colony law says no one may own a sentient being. Is that not correct? His voice echoed in the hall. Ryan swallowed. He nodded once. It is correct, he said softly. But Lyra is not my property. She is my friend and free individual. The official frowned. We shall see. Lyra stepped forward, her head held high. She spoke in broken colony speech, her voice steady. I choose to be here, she said. I choose friendship. The hall fell silent. Ryan felt tears sting his eyes. His companion stood bravely in front of dozens of strangers. He knew then that her joy was stronger than fear. The official called a witness, a local merchant who had known Lyra since her arrival. The merchant approached, hands folded. I have seen Lyra heal the gardener's cut, he said. I have seen her dance at the festival and share her song. She brings hope and skill to our colony. Another witness, a teacher from the language center, spoke. She learned our speech quickly. She teaches kindness by example. The official listened, arms crossed. Then the official asked Lyra to speak of her own life. She closed her eyes and took a breath. On Salura, my home, life was quiet, she said. But I felt alone. Here, Ryan taught me friendship. Here, I found purpose. She paused. Looking at Ryan, he nodded. I'm happy, she said. I wish only to live and learn. Her clear words carried through the hall. The official studied her. He tapped a pen on his desk. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the official spoke softly. Colony law must change. He looked at Ryan. I propose we grant Lyra personhood and freedom. No longer companion, but citizen. A murmur rose among the crowd. Ryan exhaled, relief flooding him. Lyra's hand tightened around his. The official raised his hand. The council will draft new legislation. We will ensure no purchase of sentient beings again, he said. This partnership shows friendship can grow without ownership. He banged his gavel. Hearing adjourned, volunteers and traders cheered. Ryan lifted Lyra's hand, and they walked down from the dais together. Outside, warm sunlight bathed the plaza in gold. Neighbors bowed and smiled. A child ran forward and asked Lyra to heal his scraped knee. She knelt and placed her hand over the wound. The soft device glowed, and the cut closed. The child laughed, and Ryan laughed too. Lyra stood, brushing her robes, her eyes bright. They visited a nearby fountain. Ryan knelt and splashed water toward Lyra. She laughed and splashed back. They played until their clothes were damp. Then Ryan offered her a towel. She smiled and dried her arms. He pointed to the sparkling city around them. She placed her hand over her heart and whispered, "Home." Later, they walked to a quiet park shaded by blue-leaved trees. Ryan set a blanket on the grass and unpacked fresh fruit. He offered Lyra a slice of star melon. She tasted it, her smile soft as moonlight. Ryan ate his own piece, watching her. He felt joy at her simple pleasure. As evening neared, lanterns glowed along the walkways. Performers practiced for the next festival. Ryan and Lyra paused to watch a musician tune a stringed instrument. Ryan tapped his foot, and Lyra copied him, her pale violet toes curling in time. The musician played a gentle tune. Ryan held Lyra close, and they swayed to the music. Under the twin moons, they returned to the ship. Ryan brewed warm tea, and Lyra took a cup. The steam curled between them. Ryan asked, "Are you happy?" She placed her hand over her heart and nodded. He tapped his chest and then hers, saying, "Friend." She repeated it clearly, "Friend." Ryan watched her smile by lamplight. He thought of the contract he signed weeks ago and how it no longer mattered. He had gained more than a companion, he had gained a true friend. And Lyra had found more than a stranger, she had found a home. They sat side by side, sipping tea, as the silence of the night wrapped around them like a promise for the future. Ryan stirred before sunrise, the soft hum of the ship's engines calling him to the cockpit. He rubbed his eyes and opened the door to find Lyra already there, gazing at distant stars. Her violet skin caught the pale glow of control panels. Ryan smiled and joined her. Today, they would travel to a remote outpost on a desert world, where the colonists needed help with a strange illness spreading among workers. Lyra held the small healing device at her belt, her expression calm but determined. The ship lifted off smoothly and slipped through space. Ryan guided the craft while Lyra watched sensors and charts. She learned quickly, pointing out star patterns that matched Solura's sky. Ryan glanced at her and felt pride. They crossed light years in silence, sharing only quiet breaths. When the pale desert planet appeared on the screen, Lyra's eyes grew soft. She whispered a Celeron word for home, and Ryan pressed her hand in his briefly. They landed on the dusty airstrip under twin suns that beat down like hot lamps. Colonists in light robes greeted them, worry etched on their faces. A medic stepped forward and explained in hurried words. Workers had fevers and rashes that resisted normal treatments. Ryan helped carry crates of supplies, and Lyra followed him across the red sands. Each footprint they left glowed faintly in the heat. Inside the outpost clinic, tents formed a semicircle around a metal table. The medic showed them patients lying on makeshift beds. Lyra knelt beside a man sweating with fever. She placed her hands on his forehead, then switched on the healing orb. Its soft light pulsed until the man's eyes fluttered open, his breathing steady. The medic watched in awe, marking notes on a datapad. Ryan assisted, handing Lyra water and fresh cloths. Each patient she healed opened their eyes with relief and hope. After hours of work, the sun dipped low and orange light filled the clinic. Ryan and Lyra stepped outside to rest. Colonists offered cold drinks made from dessert berries. Lyra accepted a cup and tasted the tart liquid, her lips curving into a gentle smile. Ryan watched her, remembering how frightened she had been when he first bought her. Now she healed entire camps and shone with confidence. He realized how far they had come together. As night fell, Ryan invited Lyra to join him on the observation deck, a small platform overlooking the desert expanse. They sat on metal benches and sipped tea from insulated flasks. Ryan pointed out constellations. Naming simple colony words, Lyra repeated them softly, her voice richer each time. She then spoke in Celeron, telling him a tale of ancestors who navigated storms by reading the stars. Ryan listened, enraptured by her gentle tone and the story's mystery. A sudden alarm broke the quiet. Ryan grabbed the controls and raced back to the cockpit. A nearby storm cell had turned into a meteor shower. Small rocks hurtled toward the outpost. Ryan's hands flew over buttons as Lyra leaned in, checking shields and engines. Their teamwork was seamless. Ryan piloted through swirling dust, and Lyra managed ship systems to deflect debris. Sparks flew on the consoles, but the ship held firm under their combined skill. They landed back at the clinic's airstrip as meteors rained behind them. Colonists cheered, grateful for their safe return. Lyra stepped out, brushing dust from her robes, and bowed to the crowd. Ryan joined her and spoke into a comm. The outpost is safe now. Voices crackled in reply. Thanking them both, Lyra turned to Ryan, her eyes shining with excitement and relief. He smiled and touched her hand, their bond strengthened by the night's trial. Later, back aboard the ship, Ryan and Lyra packed their gear. She placed the healing orb in its case and then wrapped the bracelet he had given her round her wrist. Ryan watched, knowing the bracelet symbolized their unity. He offered her a small datapad loaded with images of Terra Nova and Solura. She flipped through pictures, her smile soft as she saw both her old home and her new one. As they lifted off into the star-filled sky, Ryan sat beside Lyra in the cockpit. They shared a quiet moment, no words needed. The lights of the desert world faded behind them, and ahead lay the path home. Ryan glanced at Lyra, her profile calm in the glow of the controls. He whispered, "We made a difference." She nodded, placing her hand over her heart, the simple gesture saying more than any speech. Together, they flew onward, ready for the next adventure. Ryan steered the ship home, the stars gliding past the viewport like silver rain. Lyra sat beside him, her hand resting lightly on the console. After their long journey and the trials on the desert world, both felt a quiet peace in the hum of the engines. They talked in soft voices, sharing memories of the festival, the community center, and the desert clinic. Each story built a bridge between their worlds. Ras Terra Nova's blue-green glow appeared on the screens. Ryan guided the ship into orbit. Below, the colony lights sparkled against dark fields and forests. Ryan thought of how much had changed since he first bought Lyra. He had hoped to fill his loneliness. Instead, he found a friend with courage, kindness, and a gentle heart. Now, he could not imagine life without her laughter. They landed at the main airlock just after dusk. A small crowd waited. Volunteers, traders, children, and the council member who had granted Lyra freedom. Cheers rose as the ramp lowered. Ryan and Lyra stepped onto solid ground. Dust settled around their boots, and the cool night air brushed their faces. Neighbors greeted them with smiles and applause. A young girl ran forward, clutching a bouquet of blue flowers. She offered them to Lyra, who accepted with both hands and bowed her head. The petals were soft, like the light on Solura's rivers. Lyra inhaled their scent and then looked up at the girl. She whispered a Celeron phrase, and the girl giggled at the musical sound. Ryan translated, "Thank you." The girl beamed and ran back to her mother. The council member approached, carrying a small box carved from white wood. Inside lay a metal shaped like two linked hands. "For service and friendship," she said, placing it round Lyra's neck. Lyra's eyes shone as she felt the cool metal against her chest. Ryan stepped beside her, pride swelling in his heart. The crowd applauded again, louder this time, celebrating the bond that had grown between a human and his alien friend. After the ceremony, Ryan led Lyra through the plaza toward the festival grounds. Lanterns glowed along the paths, and soft music drifted through the air. Dancers twirled beneath the trees, their masks painted in bold colors. Ryan offered his arm, and Lyra placed her hand on it, her fingers curling around his forearm. Together, they moved among the dancers, their steps shy at first, then confident as they felt the rhythm. They paused by a fountain where water sparkled under lantern light. Ryan scooped a handful and let it fall like stars onto the cobblestones. Lyra laughed at the tiny droplets shimmering in the air. She dipped her fingers into the pool and made a small ripple. Ryan knelt beside her, and they watched the circles spread outward. In that simple moment, they felt part of something larger, a community that had welcomed them both. As midnight neared, they climbed a small hill overlooking the colony. The twin moons hung low and bright above the trees. Ryan and Lyra sat on a flat rock, shoulders touching. Ryan handed her a cup of tea, its steam curling like a white ribbon in the night air. She accepted it and blew gently before sipping. He sipped his own, savoring the warmth. They sat in silence, each lost in thought. Ryan remembered the first day in the bazaar, the the contract he signed without hope. He looked at Lyra's calm face and felt a thankfulness deeper than any words could show. Lyra thought of her home on Solura. She missed its purple skies and silver forests. But she felt love for this new place and for Ryan, who had given her trust, kindness, and freedom. Lyra placed the teacup down and turned to Ryan. She reached into her satchel and pulled out a small crystal from Solura gift for him. The crystal glowed faintly with an inner light. She handed it to Ryan and said the Celeron word for gratitude. He held it gently. Feeling the smooth facets beneath his fingers, he smiled and tapped his chest, then tapped hers. Saying softly, "Friend," Ryan stood and offered his hand to Lyra. She took it, and together they rose. Round them, the colony lay quiet under moonlight. Their future stretched before them like the sky above, vast, open, and full of promise. Ryan guided Lyra's hand. To the sky, she placed her palm against the cool air and whispered a vow in her gentle tongue. Ryan repeated it in colony speech. Always together, they walked back down the hill, side by side. Lanterns lit their path, and the sound of music floated behind them. In every face they passed, they saw kindness and acceptance. They knew their journey was not over, but they were ready. With friendship as their guide, they would explore new worlds, share hope, and show that true bonds can cross any distance. As they reached the ship's ramp, Ryan paused and looked at Lyra. Her smile shone brighter than any star. He opened his arms, and she stepped into them. They held each other beneath the twin moons, to friends bound by choice and heart. And in that embrace, they knew they had found something more precious than any purchase, a home in each other.